The warning sirens screamed through New Sol Station like angry metal birds. Commander Han Gil pressed his face against the cold window of the command bridge and watched death approach from the darkness of space. 3 massive ships moved toward them. They were not made of metal or stone like human ships. These alien vessels looked like giant sea creatures that had learned to swim through the void. Their dark hulls pulsed with veins of purple light. Where that light touched the empty space around them, reality seemed to bend and twist. Commander Gil, they will reach us in 40 minutes. Lieutenant Park Sue stood behind him at her control station. Her voice was steady, but Han Gil could hear the fear underneath. Everyone was afraid now. They had good reason to be. The Voidborn had been hunting humans for 30 years. They had already destroyed Earth. Mars was gone. The moon colonies were nothing but floating debris. New Sol Station was the last place where humans still lived and breathed. 2 million people called this orbital fortress home now. Most of them had never seen a real planet. The younger ones had grown up knowing only the metal corridors and recycled air of the station. They played games and fell in love and dreamed of futures that might never come. Han Gil turned away from the window. The command bridge buzzed with activity. Officers ran between computer terminals. Red lights flashed warnings on every screen. The air tasted of metal and fear. "How much ammunition do we have left?" Han Gil asked. Park Sue checked her display. 18% of our missiles, 22% of our energy weapons. The outer defense batteries are running on backup power. Han Gil nodded. It was not enough. It was never enough anymore. Every battle left them weaker. Every victory came at a price they could barely afford to pay. "Get me Chief Engineer Kim Bo," Han Gil said. The main screen flickered to life. Kim Bo appeared from deep inside the station where the fusion reactors hummed like sleeping giants. Sweat ran down his face, and his uniform was stained with grease and coolant fluid. "Commander, I can give you maybe 6 hours of full power for the shields," Kim Bo said without waiting for questions. "But I have to push the reactors past their safety limits. If something goes wrong down here, we all become a very bright star for about 3 seconds. "Do it," Han Gil said. "We need those shields." Kim Bo nodded and disappeared from the screen. Han Gil knew the engineer would work miracles if anyone could. Kim Bo had been keeping New Sol Station running for 15 years. He could make broken machines work with spare parts and determination. "Captain Lee Da, are your fighters ready?" Han Gil spoke into his communication device. Lee Da's voice crackled through the speakers from the fighter bay. "My squadron is loaded and ready to launch. We have 37 fighters operational. Pilot Choi Yu says his targeting system is acting up, but he can fly manually if needed." Han Gil smiled despite everything. Lee Da was the best pilot he had ever seen. She could make a fighter ship dance through enemy fire like it was performing ballet. Choi Yu was almost as good and twice as crazy. Together they had saved the station more times than Han Gil could count. "Launch when the Voidborn reach weapons range," Han Gil ordered. "Keep them busy while we charge the main guns." "Copy that, Commander." The bridge fell quiet except for the hum of computers and the soft beeping of sensors. Everyone watched the approaching alien ships grow larger on their screens. The Voidborn vessels moved in perfect formation like predators that had hunted together for centuries. Han Gil had seen these ships before. He knew what they could do. The aliens could fire beams of pure darkness that cut through the strongest armor like it was paper. They could create fields of energy that made human weapons pass right through them without causing damage. Worst of all, they could do something to human minds that made people stop fighting and just stand there while the aliens took them apart. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," Park Sue reported. "From the Voidborn?" "No, sir. From Dr. Yang So, in the research laboratory. She says it is urgent." Han Gil frowned. Yang So was their chief scientist. She studied captured alien technology and tried to find ways to fight back. But what could be so important right now? "Put her through." "Doctor." Yang So appeared on a small screen at Han Gil's command station. She looked excited and frightened at the same time. Her laboratory was a mess of broken alien devices and computer displays covered with numbers and symbols. "Commander, I have found something. Something important about why the Voidborn attack us. Can it wait?" We have 3 ships full of angry aliens heading our way. No, it cannot wait. Listen to me. The Voidborn are not just trying to kill us. They are harvesting something from human brains. Something they need. Han Gil stared at her. Harvesting what? Human consciousness has a unique pattern, a quantum signature that exists nowhere else in the galaxy. The aliens need this pattern to evolve beyond their current form. Without it, they are trapped as they are forever. So they have been farming us like crops? Yes, but that is not the most important part. Commander, I have found something else. Something hidden in human DNA, a genetic sequence that has been dormant for thousands of years. The main alarm started blaring again. Park Su called out, "Commander, the Voidborn ships are charging weapons. Impact in 15 minutes. Han Gil looked at Yang So on the screen. Doctor, whatever you found will have to wait. No, Yang So shouted. This could change everything. The genetic sequence, when activated, it allows humans to interface directly with quantum fields. We could fight back on their level. Attention all personnel, Han Gil announced over the station's communication system. This is your commander. Prepare for battle stations. All civilians report to the core sections immediately. This is not a drill. Throughout New Sol Station, people began running. Parents grabbed children and headed for the heavily armored center of the station. Engineers sealed blast doors and activated emergency power systems. Soldiers loaded weapons and took positions at defensive points. In the fighter bay, Captain Li Da climbed into her cockpit while mechanics made final checks on her ship's systems. Pilot Choi Yu banged on his targeting computer with his fist until the display started working properly. All fighters launch on my signal, Li Da commanded her squadron. The outer defensive batteries opened fire first. Streams of energy and explosive missiles raced toward the Voidborn ships. For a moment it looked like the attack might work. Several missiles found their targets and exploded in bright flashes against the alien hulls. But the damage was superficial. The Voidborn vessels absorbed the impacts and kept coming. They began to return fire with beams of dark energy that sliced through the station's outer armor like burning knives. Shields are holding, Kimbo reported from engineering. But they are taking heavy damage. Launch all fighters, Han Gil ordered. 37. Small ships burst from New Sol Station's launch bays like angry hornets. They spread out in attack formation and dove toward the approaching Voidborn vessels. Captain Li Da led the charge with pilot Choi Yu flying beside her. The space between the station and the alien ships filled with weapons fire and explosions. Human fighters twisted and turned through defensive fire while launching their own attacks. The Voidborn ships responded by releasing swarms of smaller craft that moved like living shadows. We are losing ships, Li Da reported over the communication channel. Her voice remained calm even as explosions lit up the space around her fighter. Han Gil watched the battle from his command bridge. His people were fighting bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Voidborn had better technology and seemed to know exactly how humans would attack. Sir, shields down to 60%, Park Su announced. The aliens are concentrating their fire on Section 7. Transfer power from non-essential systems to the shields. Already done, sir. Dr. Yang So appeared on his screen again. Commander, please listen to me. I can activate the genetic sequence in volunteers. It might give us a chance. What are the risks? Unknown. The process could kill them, or worse. But Commander, we are about to die anyway. Han Gil looked around his bridge at the officers who served under him. These people trusted him to make the right decisions. They had followed him through 30 years of war and never questioned his orders. The station shook as another Voidborn energy beam punched through the outer hull. Somewhere deep in the station, people were dying. Dr. Yang So, prepare your procedure. Find volunteers, but make sure they understand the risks. Yes, sir. The battle continued to rage outside. Human fighters exploded in bright flashes while others managed to damage alien vessels before being destroyed in return. Captain Li Da's squadron was fighting harder than ever, but they were running out of ships and ammunition. Commander, Park Su said quietly. Long-range sensors are detecting more Voidborn ships approaching. At least 12 vessels. Han Gil closed his eyes for a moment. Reinforcements were coming and New Sol Station could barely handle the 3 ships already attacking them. How long until they arrive? 2 hours, maybe less. Han Gil looked out at the battle raging in space. His fighters were still fighting, but half of them were gone. The station's shields were failing. In 2 hours, 15 void-born ships would finish what these 3 had started, unless Dr. Yang So was right. Unless humans really did have something hidden in their genes that could change everything. Dr. Yang So, begin your procedure, Dr. Yang So ran through the corridors of New Sol Station while explosions shook the walls around her. Emergency lights flashed red and white as she carried her research data toward the medical bay. Every few seconds the station trembled from another void-born energy blast hitting the shields. She burst through the medical bay doors where 3 volunteers waited for her. Chief Engineer Kim Bo sat on the first examination table. His face was calm, but his hands shook slightly. Captain, Li Da stood beside him, still wearing her flight suit. She had left her fighter squadron to volunteer for this unknown procedure. The 3rd volunteer was pilot Choi Yu. His left arm was wrapped in bandages from his last battle against the alien ships. He smiled at Dr. Yang. So when she entered the room, "Doctor, are you sure this will work?" Kim Bo asked. Yang So set down her equipment and began connecting cables to various machines. "I am not sure of anything. The genetic sequence I found has been dormant in human DNA for thousands of years, maybe longer." She pulled up holographic displays showing complex genetic structures. The images looked like twisted ladders made of light floating in the air above the medical tables. "Look at this pattern here." Yang So pointed to a section of the genetic code. "This sequence does not match anything else in human genetics. It is like someone inserted it into our DNA and then locked it away." Captain Li Da studied the floating images. "Who could have done something like that? I do not know. But I found references to similar patterns in our oldest historical records. Ancient stories about humans coming from the stars. Legends about people who could move objects with their minds or walk through solid walls." The station shook again as another void-born attack hit the outer hull. Through the medical bay windows they could see flashes of weapons fire in the darkness of space. "The activation process will be painful," Yang So continued. "I have to use focused energy beams to break the genetic locks. Your nervous systems will be overloaded during the transformation." Kim Bo nodded. "How painful." "Imagine every nerve in your body being set on fire at the same time. Then imagine that feeling lasting for several minutes." Choi Yu laughed nervously. "Well, that sounds wonderful. When do we start?" Yang So attached monitoring devices to each volunteer. Their heart rates and brain activity appeared on screens around the medical bay. She had never attempted anything like this before. The genetic modification equipment had been designed for simple medical treatments, not for unlocking ancient codes hidden in human DNA. "Kim Bo, you will go first. Lie down and try to remain still, no matter what happens." The engineer stretched out on the examination table. Yang So positioned the genetic modification device above his head. It looked like a metal crown connected to the medical bay's main computer systems. Beginning genetic sequence activation in 3, 2, 1. Energy flowed from the device into Kim Bo's brain. At first, nothing happened. Then Kim Bo's body began to convulse. His back arched off the table and his hands gripped the metal railing so hard that his knuckles turned white. "His neural activity is off the charts," Yang So reported while watching the medical displays. "Brain patterns are shifting into configurations I have never seen before." Kim Bo screamed. The sound was not entirely human. It echoed through the medical bay like the cry of something being born or dying. His eyes rolled back until only the whites were visible. "Should we stop the procedure?" Li Da asked. "No. His vital signs are stable. This is what the transformation looks like." The lights in the medical bay began to flicker. Electronic equipment started behaving strangely. Computer screens showed random patterns of numbers and symbols that scrolled too fast to read. Kim Bo's screaming stopped suddenly. His body went completely still. For a moment, Yang So thought he was dead. Then his eyes opened, and they were different. They seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Kim Bo, can you hear me?" Yang So asked. The engineer sat up slowly. When he spoke, his voice sounded distant, like it was coming from far away. I can hear you. I can hear everything. The quantum fields that hold reality together. The electromagnetic patterns flowing through the station's systems. The thoughts of every person within 100 meters. Kimbo raised his hand toward a broken medical scanner across the room. Without touching it, the device suddenly sparked to life. Its displays showed normal readouts for the first time in months. How did you do that? Choyu stared at the repaired scanner. I reached out with my mind and fixed the damaged circuits. It was as easy as moving my fingers. Yang So checked Kimbo's vital signs. His brain activity showed patterns that were completely unlike normal human neural function. Parts of his mind seemed to be operating in multiple dimensions at once. The genetic sequence has been fully activated, she announced. Kimbo, try to stand up. The engineer stood up from the examination table. As he moved, Yang So noticed something strange. For just a moment, Kimbo seemed to flicker like a bad video transmission. She could see through him to the wall behind. Did you see that? Li Da whispered. See what? Kimbo asked. You became transparent for a second. Kimbo looked down at his hands. As they watched, his right hand began to fade until it was nearly invisible. Then it returned to normal. I think I can control my molecular density, Kimbo said with wonder in his voice. I can make myself less solid, or more solid depending on what I need. Yang So was recording everything on her portable computers. This was beyond anything she had imagined possible. The genetic modifications were not just giving humans new abilities. They were changing the fundamental nature of what it meant to be human. Captain Li Da, are you ready? Yang So asked. Li Da lay down on the second examination table. She looked nervous but determined. If Kimbo can do it, so can I. Yang So activated the genetic modification device again. Li Da's transformation was different from Kimbo's. Where the engineer had screamed, the pilot remained silent. Her body glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. When the procedure was complete, Li Da opened her eyes and smiled. But Yang So noticed that her smile seemed to exist in several places at once, like multiple versions of her face overlapping. I can see through time, Li Da said quietly. Not far, just a few seconds into the future. I can see the paths that reality might take depending on the choices we make. She stood up and walked to the window. As she moved, Yang So saw after images following her. It was as if Li Da was leaving copies of herself behind with each step. The void-born ships, Li Da continued. I can see their attack patterns before they execute them. Every movement they will make in the next few minutes is visible to me. Choyu was practically bouncing with excitement. My turn, my turn. His transformation was the most dramatic yet. When Yang So activated the genetic sequence in his brain, Choyu did not scream or glow. Instead, he simply vanished. Choyu. Li Da called out. Where are you? His voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I am still here. I think I have moved into a different layer of reality. I can see all of you, but you look flat and strange, like you are painted on a wall. Slowly, Choyu began to reappear, first as a faint outline, then becoming more solid until he looked normal again. I can step sideways from normal space, he explained. When I do that, physical matter cannot touch me. Walls, floors, even energy weapons pass right through me. Yang So was amazed and terrified at the same time. The three volunteers had gained abilities that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. But there was something else, something that worried her. How do you feel? She asked Kimbo. I mean, do you still feel human? Kimbo considered the question carefully. Yes and no. I am still me, but I am also something more. I can feel my consciousness spreading out beyond my body. It is like being connected to a vast network that I never knew existed. The medical bay's communication system crackled to life. Commander Han Gil's voice came through the speakers. Dr. Yang So, report to the command bridge immediately. Bring your volunteers. On our way, Commander. As they left the medical bay, Yang So noticed that the three transformed humans moved differently now. Kimbo's footsteps made no sound on the metal floor. Li Da seemed to float rather than walk. Choi Yu occasionally became translucent without realizing it. They arrived at the command bridge to find chaos. Lieutenant Park Soo was coordinating damage reports from all over the station. Multiple hull breaches had been sealed, but the void-borne attacks were becoming more intense. "Doctor, please tell me you have good news," Commander Han Gil said. "The genetic modifications were successful. Kimbo, demonstrate your abilities." The engineer walked over to a damaged control panel. Without touching it, he made the broken displays light up with operational data. Then he placed his hand directly into the panel, his flesh passing through the solid metal like it was water. "Incredible," Han Gil whispered. "Commander," Li Da interrupted, "I can see the void-borne attack patterns. They are planning to concentrate their fire on the reactor section in approximately 43 seconds. Han Gil immediately activated the Extinction station's defensive systems. Energy barriers formed around the reactor section just as the alien ships fired their dark energy weapons. The barriers held against the attack. "How did you know that?" Park Soo asked. "I can see a few seconds into the future. The void-borne ship movements are predictable once you understand their tactical preferences." Lieutenant Park Soo was checking her long-range sensors when she noticed something unusual in the station's historical databases. "Commander, I found something strange in our archives." She brought up ancient star charts on the main display. "These records suggest that humans did not originally evolve on Earth. According to these files, we came from another galaxy entirely." "That is impossible," Commander Han Gil said. "The records are fragmentary, but they mention a great war against something called the Void Hunters. A dying civilization placed human refugees on Earth and locked away their genetic potential until it was needed." Dr. Yang So studied the ancient records. "The genetic sequence I activated, it might be a weapon designed by whoever saved humanity thousands of years ago." The transformed humans were becoming more powerful by the minute. Kimbo could now repair complex systems just by thinking about them. Li Da could predict enemy movements up to a minute in advance. Choi Yu could phase in and out of normal reality at will. But Yang So was beginning to notice disturbing side effects. The three volunteers were starting to speak in perfect unison, occasionally, as if they were becoming connected at a mental level. Their individual personalities seemed to be blending together. "Commander," Yang So said quietly, "there may be a problem with the modifications." Before Han Gil could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command bridge. Park Soo's sensors had detected the reinforcement fleet of void-borne ships approaching ahead of schedule. 15 alien vessels incoming, Park Soo announced. "They will arrive in 90 minutes. Commander Han Gil looked at his transformed crew members and then at Dr. Yang So. "Doctor, how many more people can you modify?" "The process takes about 30 minutes per person. With the equipment I have, maybe 20 more volunteers before the aliens arrive." "Do it. Transform anyone who volunteers." As Yang So left to prepare for more genetic modifications, she wondered if they were saving humanity or destroying it. The power they were unleashing was incredible, but at what cost? The ancient genetic locks were breaking open, revealing abilities that seemed godlike. But the people receiving these abilities were becoming less human with each passing hour. In the depths of space, the void-borne reinforcement fleet moved closer to New Sol Station, unaware that their prey was transforming into something they had never encountered before. 23 more humans had undergone the genetic transformation when the void-borne reinforcement fleet arrived. New Sol Station now housed a small army of enhanced humans with abilities that defied understanding. Commander Han Gil watched from his bridge as Captain Li Da led the first squadron of transformed fighters into battle. Her ships moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. They twisted and turned through dimensions that normal matter could not access. "Enemy fighters incoming," Lieutenant Park Soo announced. "The Voidborn are launching attack craft from all 15 vessels." Through the bridge windows, Han Gil could see the battle unfolding. The transformed human fighters did not fly like normal spacecraft. They phased in and out of reality, appearing suddenly behind enemy ships to fire devastating attacks before vanishing again. Pilot Choi Yu had become something beyond recognition. His consciousness was spread across multiple fighter craft simultaneously. He could control 5 ships at once, while existing partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions. "This is incredible," Park Soo whispered as she watched the enhanced humans tear through the Voidborn formation. "They are destroying alien ships faster than our sensors can track." But Hangil noticed something troubling. The transformed humans were no longer using the communication channels. They seemed to coordinate their attacks through some kind of mental connection that bypassed all technology. In the engineering section, Kim Bo had merged partially with New Seoul Station itself. His consciousness flowed through every circuit and system. He could repair damage instantly and boost the station's power output beyond safe limits. "Kim Bo, report on shield status," Hangil called through the communication system. The response came not from the speakers but from the lights themselves. They pulsed in complex patterns that somehow conveyed meaning directly to Hangil's mind. Shields at maximum power. Reactor cores operating at 130% efficiency. Hull breaches sealed. All systems optimal. Hangil shook his head in amazement. Kim Bo was no longer speaking with words. He was communicating through direct manipulation of the station's electrical systems. Dr. Yang So arrived on the bridge carrying her portable research equipment. She looked exhausted and worried. "Commander, we have a serious problem with the genetic modifications." "What kind of problem?" Yang So activated her holographic displays. Brain scan data appeared in the air showing neural patterns unlike anything in medical science. The enhanced humans are losing their individual identities. Their consciousness patterns are merging into a collective entity. In approximately 6 hours, they will no longer be separate people. Hangil stared at the data. "Are you saying they will become some kind of hive mind?" "Something like that, but worse. The quantum fields they can access are starting to overload their neural pathways. The human brain was not designed to process information from multiple dimensions simultaneously. How long do they have?" "Days, maybe weeks before their minds completely dissolve into pure quantum energy." The battle outside was turning into a massacre. The Voidborn ships, despite their advanced technology, could not adapt to enemies that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Enhanced human fighters struck from angles that did not exist in normal space. But Hangil could see that his transformed crew members were becoming something inhuman. When they appeared on the bridge communication screens, their faces seemed to shift and blur. Sometimes he could see through them to whatever was behind. "Commander," Lida's voice came from the communication system, but it sounded like multiple people speaking in perfect harmony. "The enemy fleet is attempting to retreat. Should we pursue?" "Negative. Return to the station." "Understood." As the enhanced fighters returned to New Seoul Station, Hangil noticed they no longer needed the landing bays. The ships simply phased through the station's hull and materialized inside the fighter bays. Choi Yu appeared on the bridge without using doors or elevators. He simply walked through the wall as if it were made of air. "Commander," Choi Yu said, though his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, "we have discovered something important about the Voidborn." "What did you learn?" "They are not truly alive. The Voidborn are the remains of civilizations that chose to embrace nothingness rather than evolve. They consume other species to delay their own dissolution into the void." Kim Bo's consciousness flowed into the bridge through the electrical systems. His voice came from the lights and displays around them. "The Voidborn fear what we are becoming. We represent evolution beyond physical existence while maintaining consciousness and identity. They cannot consume us or corrupt us." Dr. Yang So was recording everything on her research equipment. "The genetic modifications are accelerating beyond my projections. The enhanced humans are developing new abilities every hour." As if to demonstrate her point, Li Da walked through the bridge. Wallen joined their conversation. But Hangil could see that she existed in several places simultaneously. There were multiple versions of her standing in slightly different positions. "I can perceive all possible futures now," Li Da said with voices that harmonized with themselves. "Every choice creates branching paths through time. I can see them all." What do you see in our future? Han Gil asked. Many possibilities. In some timelines, we defeat the Voidborn completely. In others, we transcend physical existence entirely. But in all futures, humanity as we knew it ceases to exist. The transformation process was speeding up. More volunteers were undergoing genetic modification every hour. The medical bay had become a production line for creating enhanced humans with godlike abilities. But Yang So's research showed disturbing trends. The modified humans were losing the ability to relate to normal people. They spoke in mathematical concepts rather than words. They saw reality as patterns of energy rather than physical objects. Commander, Park Su interrupted their discussion. Long-range sensors are detecting something massive approaching from outside our solar system. The main display showed sensor readings that made no sense. Whatever was coming toward them was larger than entire planets but seemed to exist partially outside normal space. What is that thing? Han Gil asked. Choi Yu and Li Da spoke simultaneously, their voices blending into an eerie harmony. The Void Heart, the Void-born ultimate weapon. It consumes space itself, creating expanding zones of absolute nothingness. How long until it reaches us? 72 hours. Dr. Yang So checked her research data. Commander, I may have found a way to stabilize the genetic modifications, but it requires a sacrifice that might be unacceptable. Explain. One consciousness must willingly dissolve completely into the quantum field to serve as an anchor for all the others. This person would cease to exist as an individual, but could stabilize the modifications for everyone else. Han Gil looked around at his. The Void Heart arrived like a wound in space itself. Commander Han Gil stared at the main display and tried to understand what his sensors were showing him. The massive entity was bigger than Earth's moon, but seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Where the Void Heart moved, stars simply stopped existing. Not destroyed or consumed, but erased as if they had never been there at all. Space itself became empty of everything, including the basic forces that held reality together. It will reach us in 6 hours, Lieutenant Park Su reported. Her voice was steady, but Han Gil could see the fear in her eyes. Commander, how do we fight something that can erase existence itself? Before Han Gil could answer, the enhanced humans began moving throughout New Seoul Station. They no longer walked through corridors like normal people. Instead, they flowed through walls and floors like living energy. Kim Bo had become completely integrated with the station's systems. His consciousness existed in every circuit and computer throughout the massive orbital fortress. When he spoke, his words came from the air itself. Commander, we understand the nature of the Void Heart now. It is not a weapon in the traditional sense. It is a concentrated expression of the Void-born philosophy. What philosophy? Han Gil asked. The belief that existence is suffering. The Void Heart represents their desire to return everything to the perfect peace of nothingness. They see consciousness as a disease that must be cured. Captain Li Da materialized on the bridge, though parts of her body seemed to exist in different moments of time. When she moved, Han Gil could see ghostly images of where she had been and where she would be. The Voidborn are preparing to make their final attack, Li Da said with multiple voices speaking in harmony. They will use the Void Heart to erase this entire solar system rather than allow us to evolve beyond their understanding. Pilot Choi, Yu appeared beside her, his form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. We have a plan, Commander, but it requires us to enter quantum space directly. What does that mean? Dr. Yang So, who had remained unmodified, stepped forward with her research equipment. The enhanced humans want to phase into the quantum dimensions where the Void Heart's power originates. They believe they can attack its core structure from inside reality itself. Han Gil looked at his transformed crew members. They barely resembled the people he had known for years. Kim Bo existed as patterns of light flowing through the station's systems. Li Da appeared as multiple versions of herself overlapping in the same space. Choi Yu flickered between visibility and transparency. What are the risks? Han Gil asked. Unknown. Yang So admitted. The quantum dimensions operate by rules that normal physics cannot describe. The enhanced humans might be destroyed, or they might become something so far beyond human that they can never return. The station shook as void-born ships began their final assault. But their attacks seemed weak compared to the approaching void. Heart. The alien vessels were positioning themselves around the massive entity like satellites orbiting a dark planet. "Commander," Kimbo's voice came from every speaker on the bridge simultaneously. "We need you to coordinate our attack from normal space. Only someone with an unchanged human perspective can guide us while we operate in quantum dimensions." Han. Gil understood what they were asking. He would remain behind to direct the battle while his people ventured into layers of reality that could destroy their minds or transform them into something unrecognizable. All enhanced personnel, prepare for quantum phase transition, Han Gil announced. Throughout New Sol Station, the modified humans began to glow with inner light. Their bodies became translucent as they prepared to shift into dimensions that existed beyond normal matter and energy. Dr. Yang So watched her instruments as the transformation began. Their neural patterns are synchronizing completely. They are becoming a single consciousness distributed across multiple quantum states. "Are they still human?" Han Gil asked. "I do not know. They are something that has never existed before." The enhanced humans began to fade from normal space. Kimbo's consciousness withdrew from the station's systems, leaving the computers running on automatic programs. Li Da's multiple time images merged into a single point of light. Choi Yu became completely transparent before vanishing entirely. "Quantum phase transition complete," Yang So reported. "I can no longer detect them on any normal sensors." But Han Gil could still sense their presence somehow. It was as if they had moved to a place that was very close but completely unreachable. He could feel their thoughts at the edge of his consciousness. The main display flickered and showed impossible images. Han Gil was seeing through the enhanced human's perception as they moved through quantum space. Reality looked completely different from their perspective. Normal matter appeared as patterns of probability rather than solid objects. Time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. The void heart revealed its true nature as a massive concentration of anti-existence, a place where the concept of being something had been replaced by the desire to be nothing. "They have engaged the enemy," Yang So announced while watching her quantum sensors. The battle that followed could not be described. In normal terms, the enhanced humans fought across dimensions where cause and effect operated by alien rules. They attacked the void heart from angles that did not exist in three-dimensional space. Han Gil watched through their shared consciousness as the quantum war unfolded. His transformed crew members had become beings of pure thought and will, moving through layers of reality like dolphins swimming through an ocean of possibility. But the void heart was adapting. It began to learn how to exist in quantum space, extending its power into the dimensions where the enhanced humans operated. The entity started consuming probability itself, erasing potential futures before they could become real. "Commander," Li Da's voice came from nowhere and everywhere. "The void heart is more powerful in quantum space than we expected. It can erase possibilities as well as actualities. What do you need from me?" "Coordinate our attacks from normal space. Your unchanged human intuition can guide us in ways that our enhanced consciousness cannot." Han Gil found himself directing a battle fought across multiple dimensions. He could not see or understand most of what was happening, but somehow his human instincts told him when to order advances or retreats. The enhanced human struck at the void heart's core, while it tried to erase them from existence entirely. The battle became a contest between the alien desire for nothingness and human determination to preserve the right of consciousness to exist. "The entity is weakening," Choi Yu reported through quantum connections that bypassed normal communication. "But we are losing cohesion. The quantum fields are too strong for our modified neural patterns." Dr. Yang So checked her readings and discovered something terrible. "Commander, the enhanced humans are burning out. Their consciousness cannot maintain coherence in quantum space much longer." "How much time do they have?" "Minutes, maybe less," Han Gil made a decision that went against every instinct he had as a military commander. Instead of ordering a retreat, he told his people to continue their attack. All enhanced personnel, press forward. Strike at the Void Heart's core with everything you have. Sir, Yang So protested. They will be destroyed. They are already dying. At least this way their sacrifice means something. The final assault began as the enhanced humans poured all their remaining power into a coordinated attack on the Void Heart's fundamental structure. They were no longer individual people but had become a single consciousness, dedicated to preserving the right of existence to triumph over nothingness. The Void Heart screamed across multiple dimensions as the enhanced humans tore into its core. The sound was not audible in normal space, but Han Gil felt it in his bones and soul. Reality itself began to crack around New Soul Station. The battle between existence and nothingness was tearing holes in the fabric of space-time. Commander, Kim Bo's fading voice reached him through quantum static. We cannot destroy the Void Heart, but we can transform it. Instead of consuming existence, it can become a generator of new realities. Do it. The enhanced humans made their final sacrifice. They poured their consciousness directly into the Void Heart's core, not to destroy it, but to change its fundamental nature. Instead of seeking nothingness, it would create infinite possibilities. The explosion that followed was not visible in normal space, but Han Gil felt it in every atom of his being. The Void Heart transformed from an engine of destruction into something that generated new forms of existence. When the quantum storm cleared, New Soul Station found itself surrounded by space that sparkled with new stars and previously impossible forms of matter. The enhanced humans were gone, but their sacrifice had transformed the greatest weapon of nothingness into a tool for creating infinite varieties of existence. Han Gil stood on his bridge and realized that humanity had won not through superior firepower, but by choosing to preserve consciousness and possibility even at the cost of their own transformation. The war against the Voidborn was over, but the universe would never be the same. The silence after the quantum explosion was the most profound quiet Commander Han Gil had ever experienced. New Soul Station drifted through space that had been fundamentally changed by the sacrifice of the enhanced humans. Dr. Yang So stood at her monitoring station, staring at readings that made no scientific sense. Commander, the Void Heart is gone, but something else has taken its place. Through the bridge windows, Han Gil could see new stars being born in the darkness. But these were not normal stars. They pulsed with colors that had no names and generated forms of energy that should not exist. What happened to our people? Han Gil asked quietly. They are gone, but not destroyed. Their consciousness has become part of the quantum field itself. In a way, they have become the foundation that holds this new reality together. Lieutenant Park Soo was checking her communications equipment. Sir, I am receiving signals from across the galaxy. Planets that were consumed by the Voidborn are returning to normal space. The main display showed long-range sensor readings from throughout known space. Worlds that had been erased by Voidborn attacks were reappearing, complete with their original populations and civilizations intact. The transformation of the Void Heart has reversed all the damage the Voidborn caused, Yang So explained. Instead of consuming existence, it is now restoring what was lost. But Han Gil felt empty inside. His crew, his friends, the people who had trusted him with their lives, were gone. They had become something beyond human, but in doing so had ceased to be the individuals he had known and cared about. Commander, a familiar voice said behind him. Han Gil turned around and saw Kim Bo standing near the bridge entrance. But this was not the enhanced version who had merged with the station's systems. This looked like the original engineer, exactly as he had been before the genetic modifications. Kim Bo, how is this possible? The quantum explosion created echoes of our original selves, Kim Bo explained. We exist now as both the enhanced consciousness that transformed reality and as restored versions of who we used to be. Captain Lee Da and pilot Choi Yu appeared on the bridge, looking exactly as they had before their transformation. They seemed solid and real, but there was something different in their eyes. A depth of knowledge that spoke of experiences beyond normal human understanding. We are not the same people who underwent the genetic modifications, Li Da said. We are new individuals created from the quantum echoes of their memories and personalities. But you remember everything? Han Gil asked. We remember being them, but we also remember existing in quantum space and transforming the void heart. We are simultaneously the people you knew and something entirely new. Dr. Yang So ran medical scans on the restored crew members. They are completely human according to all my instruments. No genetic modifications, no quantum enhancements, but their neural patterns show memories of experiences that should be impossible. New Seoul Station itself had been changed by the quantum explosion. The corridors seemed brighter and the air tasted cleaner. Systems that had been damaged or worn out from years of war were now functioning perfectly. The station has been restored to its original condition, Kim Bo reported. But more than that, it has been improved. The quantum effects have enhanced our technology in ways I am still discovering. Choi Yu was examining the fighter bay through the bridge's internal cameras. Commander, our fighters have been transformed as well. They can now travel between normal space and quantum dimensions at will. What does that mean for us? Han Gil asked. It means humanity is no longer trapped in one location or limited to normal space, Li Da explained. We can explore dimensions that were previously impossible to reach. Over the following hours, more impossible things began to happen. Other survivors from destroyed human colonies began appearing on New Seoul Station, restored from quantum echoes, just like the enhanced crew members. Families that had been separated for decades were reunited. Children who had died in void-born attacks returned as healthy young people, with memories of both their original lives and their time existing as pure consciousness. Dr. Yang So worked frantically to document these miraculous resurrections. The quantum field is recreating people based on the memories and emotional connections of the survivors. Love and human bonds are somehow serving as templates for restoration. But Han Gil struggled with a troubling question. If these restored people were just quantum echoes, were they really the same individuals or merely copies with implanted memories? Commander, the restored Kim Bo approached him privately. I know what you are wondering. Are we real or just sophisticated copies? I do not know how to answer that question. Neither do we. But does it matter? We have the same memories, the same personalities, the same connections to each other and to you. If we are copies, we are perfect copies that include every aspect of who we used to be. But the original enhanced versions of yourselves sacrificed everything to save us. And we carry those memories too. We remember making that choice, and we remember the peace we felt knowing that consciousness and existence would continue. In a way, we are both the people who died and the people who lived. Reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Civilizations that had been destroyed by the Voidborn were being restored just as humanity had been. The quantum explosion had created a wave of resurrection that was spreading throughout known space. But the Voidborn themselves were gone. Not destroyed, but transformed. Yang So's instruments detected faint quantum signatures that might have been the alien consciousness, but changed into something that created rather than consumed. I think the Voidborn have been given a second chance, Yang So explained to the command staff. The enhanced humans did not destroy them but offered them an alternative to their philosophy of nothingness. Lieutenant Park Soo discovered something remarkable in the station's historical archives. The ancient records that had mentioned humanity's origins from another galaxy now contained complete information rather than fragments. According to these files, this exact scenario has happened before, Park Soo reported. Other species have faced the Voidborn, and some have discovered the same genetic potential that we did. So we are not unique? No, but we are rare. Most species choose to fight the Voidborn with conventional weapons and are consumed. Only a few have been willing to sacrifice their original nature to become something capable of transforming rather than destroying their enemies. Han Gil realized that humanity had been tested and had passed by choosing transformation over destruction, creation over consumption, and sacrifice over survival. The restored crew members began taking their positions around New Seoul Station, but they worked with knowledge and abilities that far exceeded their original training. They could understand and operate technology that had been transformed by quantum effects. Commander, Lee Da said while monitoring the new sensor systems, we are receiving communication requests from dozens of civilizations across the galaxy. News of what happened here has spread and they want to make contact. What kind of contact? They want to form an alliance, a galactic confederation dedicated to protecting consciousness and promoting creation rather than destruction. Han Gil looked out at the space around New Sol Station, now filled with new stars and impossible forms of matter. The price of victory had been the transformation of humanity into something beyond its original nature. But perhaps that had always been the point. Perhaps evolution required not just survival, but the willingness to become something greater than what you were before. Open communication channels, Han Gil ordered. Let them know that humanity is ready to join the larger community of conscious beings. As New Sol Station prepared to take its place in a transformed galaxy, Han Gil reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. They had faced extinction and emerged as something new, something capable of turning the greatest weapon of destruction into a force for creation. The enhanced humans had sacrificed their individual existence to save not just humanity, but the concept of existence itself. Their quantum echoes now served as bridges between what was and what could be. Humanity's might had held steady not through superior firepower, but through the willingness to pay any price to preserve consciousness and hope in a universe that sometimes seemed dedicated to their destruction. 6 months after the transformation of the Void Heart, New Sol Station had become the center of a new galactic civilization. Commander Han Gil stood in what was once the command bridge, but had been transformed into something far more sophisticated. The station itself had evolved beyond recognition. It could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, serving as a bridge between normal space and the quantum realms where thought and reality intersected. What had once been a desperate refugee fortress was now a living ship capable of traveling instantly between star systems. Commander, we have representatives arriving from the Andromeda Galaxy, Lieutenant Park Su reported. Her job had changed from military communications to diplomatic coordination as dozens of civilizations sought contact with humanity. Through the observation windows, Han Gil watched impossible ships materialize from quantum space. These vessels belonged to species that had survived their own encounters with cosmic-level threats, each one transformed by their experiences into something beyond their original nature. Captain Lee Da approached from the navigation center where she worked, with quantum probability streams to chart courses through dimensions that had no names. She looked exactly as she had before the genetic modifications, but her understanding of reality now encompassed concepts that normal physics could not describe. The delegation from the Spiral Arm Collective has arrived, Lee Da reported. They represent 47 species that achieved transcendence through different methods than ours. What did they learn from their transformations? Han Gil asked. Each species that survives encounters with universe-level threats discovers a different aspect of conscious evolution. We found the path through sacrifice and transformation. Others achieved transcendence through unity, creativity, or acceptance. Chief O, Engineer Kim Bo emerged from the station's quantum core where he worked with technologies that existed partially as physical devices and partially as pure thought. The quantum echoes had restored him as a normal human, but with complete knowledge of how to build machines that operated on principles beyond normal science. Commander, the new propulsion systems are ready for testing, Kim Bo announced. We can now travel not just between star systems but between different versions of reality itself. Dr. Yang So had established the galaxy's first Institute for Consciousness, studies aboard New Sol Station. Her research focused on understanding how awareness and identity could survive transformations that changed the fundamental nature of existence. I have been studying the quantum echoes that restored our people, Yang So explained to Han Gil. The process that brought them back was not random. It was guided by love, memory, and the connections between conscious beings. So human relationships survived even when individual identity was dissolved? More than that, the bonds between people became part of the quantum structure of reality itself. Love, friendship, and loyalty are now fundamental forces that help shape how the universe operates. Pilot Choi Yu had become the station's primary interface with quantum space. He could exist simultaneously in normal reality and in dimensions where time moved in multiple directions. His restored human form served as an anchor point for consciousness that spanned impossible distances. "Commander, I have been exploring the far reaches of quantum space," Choi Yu reported. "The transformation we underwent was not unique to our galaxy. Similar events have occurred throughout the universe for billions of years." "What does that mean?" "It means consciousness is not an accident. The universe seems to be designed to create beings capable of choice, creativity, and sacrifice. We are part of a pattern that spans cosmic history." The main display showed a map of known space that had been transformed by humanity's victory over the Voidborn. Dead zones where entire civilizations had been consumed were now bright with new life. Planets that had been erased from existence were returning with their populations restored from quantum echoes. But the most significant change was in how species related to each other. The threat of cosmic-level extinction had forced civilizations to abandon territorial competition in favor of cooperative survival. "We are receiving a priority transmission from Earth," Park Soo announced. The blue-green planet appeared on the main screen, but it looked different from the scarred world that humanity had fled decades earlier. The continents were green with restored forests and the oceans sparkled with clean water. "This is Dr. Park Min-ho reporting from the Earth Restoration Project," a voice came through the communication system. "The quantum wave that originated from your location has completely healed our planet. Not only are the war damages reversed, but Earth now supports forms of life that never existed before." Han Gil felt a complex mixture of joy and sadness. Earth was saved, and humanity had survived, but at the cost of becoming something entirely different from what they had been. "Are there human survivors on Earth?" Han Gil asked. "Millions of them restored from quantum echoes just like your crew members. They have all their original memories plus knowledge of what happened during the quantum transformation. Families separated by the war have been reunited across impossible distances of space and time." "What about the Voidborn?" Han Gil needed to know what had become of humanity's ancient enemies. The quantum signatures suggest they still exist, but transformed. Instead of consuming existence, they now serve as gardeners who help cultivate new forms of consciousness throughout the universe. Dr. Yang So had been monitoring quantum field fluctuations around the former location of the Void Heart. "Commander, I am detecting organized patterns in the quantum foam that suggest intelligence. The Voidborn consciousness survived their transformation and is actively working to create rather than destroy. So we saved them too?" "It appears so. The enhanced humans chose transformation over destruction for everyone, including their enemies." Han Gil walked to the observation deck where he could see the full scope of what New Sol Station had become. The orbital fortress had grown into a living city that existed partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions. Thousands of people lived and worked throughout the station's organic corridors. Some were original human survivors, others were quantum echoes of those who had died, and many were entirely new individuals created from the intersection of human consciousness with quantum possibility. Children played in gardens that defied physics, where flowers grew in patterns that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their laughter echoed through spaces that were larger inside than outside. "Commander," a familiar voice said behind him. Han Gil turned to see the quantum echo of Engineer Kim Bo, but this version flickered between human form and pure energy. This was not the restored individual who worked in the quantum core, but the consciousness that had dissolved into the fundamental forces of reality. "You still exist as an enhanced being?" "We all do, in a way. The quantum echoes that were restored are one aspect of our consciousness, but we also continue to exist as the enhanced beings who transformed the Void Heart. We are simultaneously human and transcendent. Does that mean you are immortal?" "We exist as long as consciousness exists in the universe. Our individual personalities are preserved in quantum patterns that cannot be destroyed by normal means. In a sense, we have become guardians of the concept of awareness itself." Han Gil understood that humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had evolved beyond their original nature while preserving everything essential about what made them human. "What happens now?" Han Gil asked. Now we help other species achieve their own transcendence when they face extinction-level challenges. We serve as guides and examples, showing that evolution can preserve rather than destroy individual identity. The observation deck's windows showed views of multiple realities simultaneously. In some dimensions, Han Gil could see versions of Earth where humanity had never faced the void-born threat. In others, he saw civilizations that had chosen different paths through their own cosmic challenges. The universe is much larger and more complex than we ever imagined, the enhanced Kim Bo explained. Our victory over the Voidborn was just one note in a symphony of consciousness that spans all of existence. Captain Lee Da joined them on the observation deck, bringing reports from the various diplomatic missions that New Sol Station was coordinating. Commander, we have been invited to participate in the Universal Council of Conscious Beings. It is a gathering that occurs once every 1,000 years, where transcended species share knowledge about navigating cosmic-level challenges. When is the next council meeting? In 3 months, at the center of the galaxy where space-time is most flexible, Han Gil made his decision. Prepare New Sol Station for the journey. Humanity will take its place among the community of transcended civilizations. As the station began its transformation for travel through dimensions that existed beyond normal space, Han Gil reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. They had faced extinction and emerged as something that could exist in multiple realities simultaneously. They had preserved human consciousness while transcending human limitations. Most importantly, they had chosen creation over destruction, love over fear, and hope over despair. The enhanced humans who had sacrificed their individual existence to save everyone continued to exist as